guys, welcome back to Telltale. I'm Emily.
I'm Greg.
And we are going to be talking about H.P. Lovecraft's Dagon.
The next in our H.P. Lovecraft series.
Woo! I'm going to have Greg do the synopsis of this one.
Yeah, and because I'm old and stupid, I got to get my notes.
You're not old and stupid. You're just in a mood today.
That
It's
too.
all good. It's all good.
Mostly I just am looking up which, because I've started numbering these stories in their order of publication.
Yeah, I saw that in the list when you were sending it to me.
So I want to find out what number this one is because I can't remember. Okay, so this
excuse me.
Wow. Just let it out.
I've had way too much soda and not enough water today, that's for sure.
Okay, this was H.P. Lovecraft's 6th story that I know of. And this was published when? I can't remember that either. 1919,
brain is hard.
I think. Yeah, today.
I think just around the holidays it is. Because, my brain has
managers
been in so
fry
many
my brain
places.
for the day.
Yeah. I feel like just around the holidays, it seems like I can't brain anymore because I'm trying to keep track of who I got presents for and who I need to get presents for and who I didn't get presents for. And, now I have 2 cars out of commission.
Oh, yeah. How's that going?
That's all right.
Okay.
Well, we've got appointments already set up, but we're borrowing my mom's minivan for the time being, so
No. Okay.
we're doing all right.
Okay, so Dagon was first published in November of 1919 in a magazine called The Vagrant. It was issue number 11. That wasn't any kind of genre magazine. In 1919, they didn't exist, at least in the United States. I think it was 23 when Weird Tales came out. Mm-hmm. That was the first.
Okay.
So 1919, this was just a general fiction magazine. There were a lot of them. And probably was pretty local to Providence also. Mm-hmm. A lot of his early work was published in local papers and local magazines. Mm-hmm. So later on this got reprinted in Weird Tales, but this was originally published in The Vagrant in November of 1919.
Yay!
So what is it about? It's a very short story, so I got to keep the synopsis shorter. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I got to spoil it.
You kind of have to. There's really no way
There's just
around
not
it.
anything
It's too
more
short.
to it. A guy stranded when he's out at sea and he escapes from a ship. Mm-hmm. Okay, help me out because my brain is dead. Okay, this guy he's being held on a ship, a prisoner or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know if their ship was it doesn't really say if the ship was commandeered by pirates or if the pirates just took the crew.
Okay.
Or what was going on, or some kind of someone was pissed at someone and commandeered something.
You can see why I usually have her do the synopsis. Because I'm not so good at this. Well, anyway, this guy, he escapes and he's in a little boat on the ocean. And apparently this does really happen sometimes. An island just rises up underneath him and strands him there. And so he's stranded on this island out in the middle of nowhere with no way back except this tiny little dinghy that he escaped on. And so he starts walking around the island and comes to a spot where and I'm not quite sure about the geography of this. He comes to a point on the island where he looks down, there's this deep chasm. Wouldn't it be underwater?
Potentially,
but
yeah.
In the story it isn't, so I don't get that. Mm-hmm. But he's looking down into this deep chasm that just goes down to where it's just pure darkness.
Mm-hmm. Sinkhole. I don't know.
Well, it sounds more like a canyon style thing to me in the story. Because he's describing rocks and he describes how there are carvings in the rocks. Mm-hmm. Something intelligent carved these figures in the rocks. Mm-hmm. And I think there were also drawings on the rocks of fish and stuff. But
yeah,
they looked
hieroglyphic
really big.
Looking things, yeah.
Yeah. So he's staring down into this chasm trying to figure these things out that he's seeing. And all of a sudden, a creature comes up. A huge creature, a huge fish creature. And starts hugging one of the stone idols. Lovecraft describes it like it's worshiping the idol. I mean, you could use your imagination. Maybe he's doing other things.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways culture's worshipped.
I'm in a bad mood here.
It's funny. No, like, I mean, you're
like
not
a dog
wrong.
rubbing on
It could have. I mean, you're not wrong.
But anyway, so this great big huge fish monster comes out of the sea and is like worshiping this stone idol. And that's, if I recall correctly, where the story pretty much ends.
Yeah.
It doesn't really talk about how he gets back to civilization.
Yeah, is horrified and runs away, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow the story is recorded.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, obviously he got back to civilization somehow. Mm-hmm. Swam the whole way or whatever.
Yeah,
I don't know.
got back on the dinghy and just kept going.
The island moved.
Yeah, maybe no. I don't know. But yeah.
Okay. So, okay. Anyway, I'm being goofy, but I really did love this story.
It is really cool.
It's short. It's simple.
Lovecraft always has a great way with words.
It could be so much more, but it's following the rule of Poe and Hodgson of just give them enough to leave them imagining and wanting more.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing,
and your mind fills in the rest. The
unknown is so much more scary to humans, I think. So that's definitely a really fun part of the way a lot of horror is written, is you don't have enough information, so you freak out harder.
Oh, yeah. Think about it. When you hear some kind of weird noise in the house, that's when you're scared.
And your mind spirals and you get freaked out.
When you investigate and you find out it's just the wind blowing something that you have hanging from a tree outside, it's like, oh, yeah. Oh, well, no big deal.
It makes me think of, like, cat owners versus non-cat owners. Non-cat owner hears a bump in the night, they freak out. Cat owner automatically assumes it's the cat, but it's a serial killer. Like, yeah. But that's kind of what basically Lovecraft is doing here, is like, I appreciate that he knows when to stop, to give you just enough to know when to stop, that it just makes you like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is happening?
And, well, this story doesn't really mention Cthulhu or really get into the Cthulhu mythos, but it's generally considered to be the first Cthulhu mythos story, because the sea creatures like this do come into other stories later on. So it's generally thought to be part of, the very beginning of Cthulhu mythos.
Yes.
It's cool to be here at this point right now.
Yes. And as we continue, we also have to say, like, just because we give you these synopsis with these spoilers in them.
Oh, yeah, we don't do justice. Read the story.
Lovecraft does not.
His writing makes it way better than what I can say.
He has such a way with words and such a prose and such... Like, the man even, like, made up words. Like Eldrick and things like that are now coined in our English language that did not exist before he wrote them, just to make sure that he sets the correct mood. And it is so impressive. So, like, yes.
Yeah, and I was watching, I forget what video it was or what they were talking about, but they were putting down older writers and their writing styles, and I was almost yelling at the TV because they just don't get it. This isn't archaic writing. These people have the same vocabulary and language that we do now. Yeah.
They are just using it to a degree that is more sophisticated.
The further back you go, the closer you get to the days when writing was poetry.
Yes.
I mean, there was a time you didn't have
It was an art form. It wasn't
Shakespeare wrote poetic lines in his plays because that's the way everybody did things back then. It wasn't until the 20th century that people started writing the way people really talk.
Yeah.
And then you lose that wordsmithing, that crafting of the pure sound of the language.
And the mood that it sets.
The older authors spent time doing that. They spent time crafting their words to be something that's a joy to live, to read, a joy to read
Probably was
aloud.
a joy to live and write it, too.
Well, it was part of their art.
It was. And I think a lot of that, too, is because back then, being a writer, being a playwright, being a poet was not necessarily a high-paying job.
No.
It really was a labor of love. You wrote because you loved to do it, and if you got paid, you were lucky. And if you got paid well, you were really lucky.
Mm-hmm.
And well was at least enough to live off of.
Well, the first writers that really started to make a living off their writing were like Robert Silverberg, writing something like 200 sex novels.
Yeah.
In the space of 8 years.
Yeah. So what I think our generation is used to is writing that is commodity instead of writing that is quality.
Well, and so much of our society has created down to the lowest common denominator because certain people found it too difficult.
Yes, we do run into the issue, I think, where when you make something for the average person, what you have made is average.
Well, yeah,
I think that happens more often than not. I try to give it the benefit of the doubt because I do find that there are some authors that people really enjoy that are just good. I made the same assumptions about Stephen King. That if he was good for the average horror lover, that what he made was average horror, and it's not.
No.
But in a lot of cases, I do think a lot of modern writing is writing for commodity, not because it's an art form. Granted, I do not believe that... I believe if we want a beautiful world, we need to stop starving the artists, for sure. But I think that has also made a lot of people lose the crafting of artistry and just write very basic stuff.
I think so many of the authors today, and I have to qualify this because I haven't read a lot of today's fantasy authors, but the ones that I have read, half of them I'm finding, they're people who got their start writing young adult, and when they start writing adult novels, they're still writing young adult but with sex scenes.
Yeah.
They're not writing for somebody with a higher degree of intelligence and sophistication and education. They're still writing at a 7th grade level.
Yeah.
Maybe it sells books, but we lose the art.
Yes. And if you are fortunate enough to find authors, if you can find us authors who are modern, who have made it an art form, I would love to hear your suggestions. Go ahead and comment anybody you think we should try reading. I am game. Because, I am finding it very difficult to enjoy a lot of modern literature because I enjoy classic literature so much because it is far more complex, in my opinion, and the prose are better, and it's just...
I forget who it was that was being talked about. One of today's current authors, fantasy authors. They were being criticized for writing in an antique style of writing.
Fuck that.
Yeah. So there are authors today that know how to wordsmith, like Bradbury, but they're being criticized for it because it's not simple to read.
And we do have to say, too, this is just our perspective, because artistry is subjective.
Being simple to read is a great thing if you're trying to read 1,000 books a year. But if you actually enjoy reading, you want it to last, and so you don't mind spending more time with it.
To read to be actually educated. It's okay to read for pleasure. That's okay. But, I'm a person who also likes to learn new stuff. Yeah. So I don't just stick to escapism every time. Sometimes it's to delve into the lives of historical figures. I find it as I get older, I'm reading more nonfiction because it reminds me of how a lot of classic literature was written. Because people are trying to make something that's historical interesting. So I'm finding that I'm leaning more towards that stuff because sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction and sometimes it's better written. But... that's just me. Everybody has their preferences and stuff. I don't want to hate on anybody who just likes to read erotica or whatever. Go for it. If that's what makes you happy. Yeah, read what
you enjoy.
Yeah, if that's what makes you happy, great. But,
But I'm still going to lament that we don't have very many real artists writing books anymore.
Yeah, I lament it too, because that's what I really enjoy. I enjoy the complex writing. I enjoy abstraction and metaphor a lot. But I also want it to say something. I don't want it to just be flowery. Sometimes I find that Shakespeare says a lot of things without saying anything, really. It's soliloquies that really could have been eliminated. But the language is very cool. What can you do? But getting back to it, yes, H.P. Lovecraft has this really well-crafted wordsmithing that he does that is, we just can't do justice in the storylines that we give synopses of.
Yeah.
He
and
is
I don't
worth
think
the read.
his or Bradbury's are difficult to read at all.
No, they're really not. He uses really great metaphors that get things across. He uses foreshadowing that's obvious enough that you know that it's coming, but it's still horrific when it comes because it's like, oh, you're dreading it because the build is so good.
Well, and Lovecraft is all about the atmosphere, not so much about, there's nobody getting dismembered in his books.
Yeah, it's not super graphic.
At least not in Dagon. It's just this guy sees a creature. Creature doesn't even come after him. Where's the horror? The horror
doesn't even know what the frick that thing is.
The atmosphere that Lovecraft's writing style builds. That's where the horror
and the
lies.
after effect too. Who's gonna believe him? Who's gonna believe him?
Maybe he's mad.
Yeah, maybe he is. Maybe he's just drank too much salt water. We don't know. And that's the other thing too. It's playing into the concept of, do we have an unreliable narrator? We don't know. We don't know. It's that unknown that makes it so horrifying. But it makes it fantastic too. So if you love...
I just did a video about one of Harlan Ellison's early stories, Night Vigil.
Yeah.
That it's all about this guy that's locked up on this asteroid with no way to really communicate except to send messages back to Earth. His purpose there is to warn Earth when this alien fleet arrives in the solar system to make war on Earth. He's put there as a teenager. He was selected as a teenager for his ability to do this. He's an old man. And the story goes through all these things of his loneliness, his doubts. Is he imagining things? Is
was this meant to be imprisonment? Yeah, like paranoia.
Just going through all these crazy things, and then the end of the story, of course, he sees the aliens arrive, but he's so mad. He's so crazy by this time. Are they really arriving? Maybe they don't even exist. So he's pushing a button to warn Earth about something that maybe is totally in his own imagination,
maybe he just
hallucinating.
Made it up. Maybe he just made it up.
His situation, he should be totally insane and hallucinating.
And that's kind of what this character is dealing with as well. He was in a very traumatic situation. He's now at sea alone for who knows how freaking long.
Yeah.
On this godforsaken island that just suddenly shows up out of nowhere and isn't on the maps. And then he sees this unknown creature. Like, the fuck? That's a lot of shit to go through in any span of time.
Yeah.
Whether you like it or not. So it does make you an unreliable narrator.
Yeah.
But that just makes it a better story because you're sitting there like, who is the crazy one? Him or me for believing him?
Yeah.
The fool or the fool who follows him?
It is a great story.
So, definitely... I wouldn't put this in Telltale Top Tale, but it is definitely a good... You would?
Yeah.
All right, I'll trust you.
I would.
Yeah. I think, for me, it felt a little too short.
Yes, but that relates back to what we were saying earlier. If it was any longer, he'd have to explain more.
I know. But
have the monster come out after the guy or something. And then it becomes an action story, and you lose the atmosphere.
That's true.
I think it was perfect for what
You're
it is.
You're right. I've been convinced. It's a top tale.
Okay.
You're right.
I loved it.
Yeah, I do love it too. I don't know why, for some reason, my brain had an aneurysm.
Well,
maybe.
It was short.
Yeah.
I mean...
I guess it's because...
It's easy to want more.
I suppose it's because
when
I read it, it was standalone. Because the series of Lovecraftian things that I read were done in chronological order of publication.
Right.
So when I read this, it was separate from the rest of the Call of Cthulhu series, and I did want more. Because there were other stories in between that were kind of, but not really. Could have been other universes, couldn't have been, you don't know. But maybe because it was standalone, it felt bad. But when you see it in, like, the series of the Cthulhu mythos, you do get more.
Yeah.
So now I've rationalized that it is top.
Okay.
Which I have now done.
I didn't even have to sell you.
Nope, you didn't really. I just had to re-logic myself.
Okay.
It's all good. Yes.
Okay.
Top tail.
So that's all I got.
Yeah, that's all I got too.
Like us and subscribe to us and come back for more.
We intend to get through more Lovecraft if you love our Lovecraft stuff. Or if you love
next
Lovecraft in
one-
general. Love Doctor Strange.
The White Ship, part of the dream cycle. That's
Yes,
the next.
that was a good one. Oh,
That's the next Lovecraft.
Okay, I'm very excited for that one. All right, thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.